Okay, let's dive into this explainer. We've all been there, right? You've got this absolutely bold vision, but bringing it to life just feels like wading through molasses. You get stuck in the churn. Endless email chains, looming deadlines that somehow keep slipping, and those marathon meetings that literally just burn up your day. And honestly, the absolute worst part? Launching a massive, long-term project based on untested, kind of questionable assumptions, only to watch it just flop in the real world. Well, today, we're looking at a system designed to totally shortcut that sluggish debate cycle.
Now, this single question right here completely stumped Jake Knapp back during his time at Google. See, he was obsessed with improving team processes, and he was running these incredibly fun, loud, high-energy group brainstorming workshops with engineers. You know the type, everyone leaves with a huge pile of sticky notes and they're in great spirits. But when a colleague asked him how he actually knew the method worked, man, he realized the embarrassing truth. The ideas that ultimately launched and became successful, they weren't the ones generated in those shout-out-loud brainstorms. The best ideas were actually born when individuals had time to just focus independently.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core issue. Traditional brainstorming, it's often a trap of loud pitching and chaotic groupthink. But the sprint method flips the script entirely. It relies on a few crucial, kind of counterintuitive ingredients. First, quiet, independent focus to develop ideas deeply. Second, a looming, inescapable deadline that forces action. And third, locking all your cross-functional experts, designers, engineers, product managers, in the exact same room. Think of the 5-day design sprint as a superpower. Seriously. Instead of waiting months or even years to build a minimal product, just to see if your idea is any good, the sprint gives you the ability to literally fast forward into the future. You get to see your finished product and watch actual customer reactions to it, all before making any expensive commitments or writing a single line of permanent code. It's a total game changer. So, how does it actually work? Well, the schedule is rigorously structured to compress what usually takes months of debate into a single, highly focused week. On Monday, you map out the problem and pick one important target to focus on. Tuesday, everyone independently sketches competing solutions. Come Wednesday, you make the difficult decisions and choose the best ideas, without the endless arguing. Thursday is when you hammer out a realistic prototype. And finally, on Friday, you test it with real live target customers. It's this tight, highly structured window that just forces rapid progress. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the unique challenge it presents. This is the relay robot, built by a robotics startup called Savioke. They engineered this incredible autonomous robot to deliver items like toothbrushes and snacks to hotel rooms. The underlying tech was brilliant, but they had a massive, mission-critical problem. They didn't know how to make the robot friendly without creeping out the hotel guests. And they had just a few weeks before a live pilot at a real hotel, so they needed answers fast. During their sprint week, Savioke's CEO, Steve Cousins, voiced a really specific fear. He pointed out that, well, we're all spoiled by C-3PO and Wall-E. Because of movies, we expect robots to have hopes, dreams, and feelings. If the relay robot seemed too smart, guests might actually try to talk to it. And when the robot inevitably couldn't converse back, those guests would feel let down. So the team had to figure out exactly how much personality was too much. So come Thursday of the sprint, the team had just 8 hours to build a testable prototype. I mean, how do you build a working robot prototype in a single day? You hack it. They took the agreed-upon details from Wednesday and essentially built a facade. The robot didn't actually need to navigate autonomously for Friday's test. It just needed to appear to work for one specific task. So they mocked up a digital face on an iPad and mounted it right to the robot. And to make it move, engineers manually drove it around the hotel from a distance using a PlayStation controller. I know, it's hilarious, but it was scrappy, clever, and exactly what they needed. When Friday finally arrived, they tested it with real hotel guests, and the results were just incredible. The team had taken a risk by giving the robot a distinct personality, including this little happy dance it performed when a guest gave it a 5-star review, complete with a soundtrack of beeps. And instead of being creeped out, the guests were absolutely delighted. They took selfies with the robot, and some even wanted to order more items just to see it again. The sprint proved that giving the robot a distinct personality absolutely boosted customer satisfaction. All right, let's pivot to another fascinating sprint, this time with Blue Bottle Coffee. Now, Blue Bottle had these beautiful physical cafes filled with incredibly knowledgeable, hospitable baristas, but they had just raised a massive $20 million in funding and desperately needed to build a brand new online store. Their monumental challenge? figuring out how to organize coffee online and somehow translate the incredible hospitality and expertise of a physical cafe right into a digital shopping cart for a brand new customer. So the crucial point is that the breakthrough happened when they actually stopped thinking like web developers and started listening to their baristas. During the sprint, the team was really struggling with how to organize the coffee. Usually it's categorized by region, right? But let's be honest, most regular people don't know the difference between Honduran and Ethiopian beans. Then, the customer service lead pointed out that in the physical store, they almost never ask about geographic regions. They simply ask, how do you make coffee at home? That single, simple question perfectly matches customers with the right beans based on their actual brewing equipment. Following that amazing insight, the team sketched out 3 competing ideas for the website. One design looked literally like the physical cafe, featuring these digital wooden shelves. Another was a very text-heavy approach, mimicking a barista's detailed explanation. And the third organized coffee by that brew method we just talked about. Now, instead of spending months arguing over which design was best, they just used presentation software to secretly mock up all 3 as fake websites. By stitching together slides, they created these realistic-looking prototypes to test on actual coffee drinkers. And you know what? The customer feedback on Friday was completely surprising. The team had initially loved the wooden shells prototype, thinking it beautifully matched their cafe aesthetic. But the real customers, they actually deemed the literal translation of wooden shelves to be cheesy and, frankly, not trustworthy. However, they absolutely loved the text-heavy prototype and the brew method prototype. Customers actually read all the text and felt like they were buying from true coffee experts. This single sprint saved them from spending months and months building a beautiful but ultimately cheesy website. Now, a common pushback you'll hear about this sprint method is that some problems are just way too large to tackle in 5 days. But the secret here is to solve the surface first. The surface is simply where your product meets the customer. Even Graco, a multinational company that makes massive industrial pumps, used a sprint for an 18-month hardware project. They didn't build the machine right away. Instead, they simply prototyped the brochure for the new pump to test the surface of a sales conversation. This validated their direction before they ever engineered a single piece of actual hardware. So how do we actually build this into an actionable recipe? Well, it all comes down to the team. You need a crew of 7 or fewer people, carefully orchestrated, kind of like the casino heist in Ocean's 11. You don't necessarily need an explosives guy or a pickpocket, obviously, but you do need every single person in that room to bring a special, diverse skill to the table to overcome the specific obstacles in your path. Assembling the crew requires some very specific roles, and you've got to bring them together fast. First, you need the decider, the person who actually has the authority to make the final call. Then bring in the finance expert who knows where the money goes, the marketing expert who crafts the message, the customer expert who talks to users every single day, the tech expert who knows what can actually be built, and of course, the design expert. You want this diverse powerhouse mix of people who deeply understand the problem and are just completely fired up to solve it. But we really need to pause here for a painful cautionary tale, just to show you why that decider role is completely non-negotiable. There was a sprint run for a company we'll call Squidco. They brought in all the experts, built a fantastic prototype, and it tested beautifully with customers. It seemed like a massive win, right? But when the chief product officer, who was the ultimate decider, returned from a trip, he threw the entire project out. Because he wasn't in the room, the team had successfully solved a problem that he didn't even think was a priority. Ouch. So if your ultimate decider absolutely cannot clear their schedule for a full week, there is a hilarious but highly effective workaround. They must officially delegate their power. In one sprint, a CEO literally sent an email to the design director saying, "I hereby grant you all decision-making authority for this project." It sounds absurd, but it fully empowers the room and ensures that those 5 days of hard work won't just be vetoed the following week. As you can see, compressing months of debate into 5 structured days can literally save a business. Whether you're building a hotel delivery robot, selling premium coffee online, or designing heavy industrial hardware. By bringing the exact right mix of people together, hacking a realistic prototype, and solving the surface first, you can completely avoid the pain of launching untested ideas. So take a look at your current projects. Gather your heist team. What big problem will you fast forward into the future to solve this week?